That's been my experience for 2 weeks. As I've studied the sin of Edom in the book of Obadiah, God accomplished the work of Jeremiah 23 that I mentioned in my prayer, that where his word became like a hammer and broke through the hardness that so easily and so quickly envelops my heart. And he revealed to me that the sin of Edom, their pride, it's the sin of Daryl Swartley. He revealed to me that I'm a proud, proud man. It's been a painful 2 weeks. I prayed that God would let me feel this message. I might ask him to back off the feelings a little much. Winston Churchill I loved Winston Churchill, but he took a jab at one of his political opponents. And he described this person. He said, so-and-so is a humble little fella with a lot to be humble about. With what God's been doing in my heart, I wish that were the case. I would better be described as a proud little fella with a lot to be humble about. I heard I listened to a YouTube message by a church planter by the name of Paul Washer. And he was speaking to 5,000 teenagers at a youth conference. And he was explaining why he was late to the service. He said on the way to the meeting, he said he got a flat tire. And he pulled over on the side of the highway. And as he was changing the tire, one of his lug nuts rolled off out onto the road. And he went out and retrieved the lug nut, but he foolishly failed to look if any cars were coming. And when he looked up, there was a 30-ton logging truck bearing down on him at 90 miles an hour. He said, I didn't have time to move. He said, it ran me over. And he said, that's why I was late. And he hesitated and paused, and he said, that's crazy talk. He goes, look at me. He goes, I didn't get run over by any truck. And he goes, where's the marks? He goes, there's no marks. But then he said to the group, he said, think about it. He said, what's bigger, a 30-ton logging truck or Jesus Christ? And he said, you say that you've been impacted by a relationship with Jesus Christ. But he said, I don't see any marks. I don't see any marks. Last month, I was part of a team that had the privilege to go to Nigeria. And on Tuesday of that week, we got to go to the northern part of Nigeria that Pastor Tim failed to mention until after the trip is the most dangerous region of the world right now because of radical Islam. And we went to the city of Gombe, and they tried a new tactic 2 years ago to intimidate Christian pastors there. This is so sad. They kidnapped the son of a pastor, and they literally chopped him into pieces and put the body parts into a box and put the box on the front steps of his father's church. Attached was a note, and it said, this is what we'll do to any pastor who continues to preach the gospel in our region. These guys are undaunted. They didn't stop. They didn't slow down. And we met with these pastors. While we were meeting there, they burnt down another Christian church across town. And we had a blessed time of fellowship with these guys. And afterwards, I talked to a young pastor. And I said, how can we be praying for you in your church? And his response stunned me. You would expect that he would have said, pray that the persecution would stop. Or you might expect that he would say, pray for our safety. He didn't ask for any of those things. He said, pray for courage. Pray that our people would have courage to continue to share the gospel with our Muslim neighbors. He himself was a converted Muslim, but he said that the problem that exists is if we lead a Muslim to the Lord, we have to relocate them to the south or central part of the country because their own family will try to murder them. And then you, as the one that led them to the Lord, will also be targeted for death. And he shared a story about a Christian school teacher in his town that somebody had spread a rumor that she had dishonored the Quran, and the Muslims came and burnt her alive. These guys are heroes. I think we considered our role as that of, we went prepared to preach, to teach, to minister to these guys, and I came away feeling like the only thing we did was play the role of a water boy, bringing a cold cup of water off the bench to the starters. These guys are heroes. From what I could see from the Church of Nigeria, I believe that they bear the marks of a relationship with Jesus Christ. Their lives are marked by brokenness, humility, boldness, and courage. I get choked up because I think, what marks my life? So often, God gives me opportunities to share the gospel, but sometimes I don't because I fear what people might think. His brother's praying for courage to share the gospel with the very people that might kill him, and I'm worried what people might think. How our pride has deceived us. I believe the Nigerians' brokenness and humility comes from their constant awareness of their need for God. They need him for their next meal. A church planter's wife told me it's 55 to 60% of the Nigerians don't know for sure if they'll have food for the next meal. But the church there possesses a spirit of contentedness, a spirit of joy that I don't see too much here in the States. They have so little, but they're so happy, they're so joyful, they're so content. Again, I have to challenge us. How has our pride deceived us? I fear that the church in America has fallen into the same trap that ensnared Esau and later ensnared his entire heritage, the entire Edomite nation. I fear that we don't have a great perceived need for God in our daily lives. I can't look beyond me. And so often I live in such a way that I can explain a lot of my life apart from a relationship with Jesus Christ. My pride has blinded me to how much I need God. We need him as much as the Nigerians do. We just don't acknowledge it or realize it. We need him for the next breath of air that we need. We need him for our next heartbeat. That's what Paul said in 1 Corinthians 4. He said, who makes you different from anyone else? What do you have that you did not receive? And if you did receive it, why do you boast like you didn't? Why am I so proud? He gives us the mind to dream. He gives us strength and energy to fulfill our dreams. But there's nothing that we have that we didn't receive. So why do we boast like we didn't? Our pride is insidious. I agree with C.J. Mahaney. He said, a proud person seeks to glorify himself and not God, thereby attempted in effect to deprive God of what he is only worthy to receive, glory. Why do we so seek the glory of God and not the glory of man and not the glory of God? Mahaney goes on to say that pride takes on many forms, but it has only one end, self-glorification. I've struggled my whole life with being shy. Some of you guys laugh at that, but I have. And I believe shyness is just a highly developed form of pride. It's being incapacitated by what people think of me. It's ugly. But just this week, as God has been breaking me and revealing to me the pride that's resident in my heart, he revealed this truth that when I'm proud, I default to timidity. When I'm proud, I can go into McDonald's and be self-conscious ordering a cheeseburger from a teenager. But when I allow God to cultivate humility and brokenness in my life, I become bold and courageous. It's crazy, isn't it? It's kind of like, I guess it's the upside-down kingdom. I believe we struggle with pride. Don't think I'm pointing the finger at you. I'm pointing this at me. I struggle with pride because I think I struggle with a low view of God's holiness. So often I make God common. I make him ordinary. He's not. He's not common and he's not ordinary.